Hey everyone, it's Larry Chang from Volition Capital. Hope you're doing well. Hey everyone, it's Larry Chang from Volition Capital. Hope you're doing well. It's great to be back with you on my second live stream. I think I did my first live stream back in June, and I was exclusively streaming it on X. And today we're doing something a little bit different where we're going to simultaneously be streaming on X and LinkedIn at the same time. So welcome to those of you who are on LinkedIn. And thanks to those of you on X who have returned. I already see some old friends in the comment section, so thanks for rejoining if you've come back for a second time. We're going to be doing the same thing that we did last time, which is I'll be talking a little bit more in depth about some of my posts. Obviously, you can't cover everything in a couple hundred characters, so we've picked a few posts to dive in a little bit deeper, and I will also take some questions at the end. My only restriction on questions is that I can't talk about some of the public companies I'm involved with for obvious reasons and regulatory requirements. But outside of that, I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys want to talk about. But thanks again. So why don't we just dive right in? I'm glad to have you here. So the first post that I selected and came from some of your suggestions, I'll read it out loud here. It's essential to culturally normalize and allow disagreement within a decision-making context. Absent that, you then effectively culturally normalize suppression of disagreement / fake agreement because most people don't think exactly alike. This is a topic that I've thought a lot about. If you think about your professional, even your personal dynamics, there's a lot of times when you're making decisions in the context of groups. It may be your departmental group. It could be that you're on the leadership team of a company and your leadership team needs to make some decisions. It could be that you're on the board and the board makes decisions. In the context of what I do at Volition, investment committee can make a decision. Your family could make a decision. So there's different contexts where group decision-making happens. And the benefit of a group typically is that people can bring different perspectives. And so if people share from different perspectives that they have, you might prosecute an issue in a more holistic way. And that's the benefit of a group. But what happens in a lot of group contexts is that sort of alternate points of view and different points of view are effectively suppressed. Maybe not intentionally, but it can happen. And that almost obviates the purpose and the benefit of the group. So I've observed a few different dynamics that can occur to cause that to happen. And I thought I'd point out a couple of them. One way to suppress alternate perspectives in a group, especially in a corporate context, is if the leader comes in very early and speaks authoritatively, speaks often, and just takes up the oxygen in the room. So this is the CEO, this is the managing partner of the firm, who in a group context just dominates the entire time. This is a 30-minute meeting where they're talking 29 minutes at a time. That effectively is saying, I don't want to hear other opinions. I don't need to hear other opinions. And if the idea is to prosecute an issue, I might suggest that leaders not talk first and not talk the most. Sit back and let folks engage before you and process what other people have to say and listen to what other people have to say. And then speaking more at the end is one way to help foster different points of view in that group context. Another way to as a leader to help elevate different perspectives is to elevate different opinions. So let's say you're in a group of 10 and there's 9 people who have one point of view, but you hear one person that's either not speaking or has softly raised a different point of view. As a leader, you can say, hey, I'd like to better understand what you're saying over there. Ask questions about that point of view. That's one way to sort of create airtime and create space for a different point of view to be shared. And that actually tells everyone else that you care to listen, you care to spend the time on a different point of view. It's not to say that you're necessarily agreeing with it, but the act of sort of elevating a different point of view actually sets a cultural precedence, which I think is helpful for group dynamics. A third idea, which is a very simple one, is you get out of a group session, someone's raised an alternate point of view, you've gone in the direction of the majority, which is fine. Go up to the person who raised a different point of view and say, hey, thanks for sharing your perspective. Very simple. It could be a hallway conversation. It could be a Slack message. It could be anything. Something along those lines to just say, hey, I appreciate you doing that. And that will encourage the person to do it again next time whenever they have that sort of perspective. So if you want to get the best out of your group decision-making environments, be intentional about fostering people expressing different points of view. And you'll probably get the most out of those structures. So that's the first thought. A second post that I did was, actually there's 2 posts in a row that are related. So this one I posted last week or a couple weeks back. It says, winning practice: hire sales reps with a history of selling products and services that are harder to sell than yours. Questionable practice: hire sales reps from branded market leaders whose products were easier to sell than yours. Startups can't afford order takers in sales. So this is like a mistake that I've made multiple times. So imagine you're at a startup company or a young emerging company, and you're trying to build out your sales team. And let's just say your quota for your sales rep is $500,000 a year, something like that. That's what they're supposed to go get in terms of sales. In every sort of market, there's that startup incumbent, there's that startup company, and then there's the branded, dominant, market-leading incumbent. That's often the structure that you'll see. And what will happen is you'll start interviewing sales reps from the branded market leader. So let's just say you're a CRM company and you're interviewing sales reps at Salesforce. Or let's say you're a startup cloud computing company and you're interviewing sales reps from Amazon AWS. What you'll see is these reps come in who have consistently performed at 2, 3, 4x the quota that you're having for your sales reps. They have $1 million that they've delivered, $2 million a year. They've been President's Club 5 times in a row, et cetera, et cetera. You see tremendous performance. And then when you bring them into the company, what you realize sometimes and oftentimes is that they were really just order takers. They had all the advantages of being the market leader. Everything about the process was easier. Every email was responded to more easily. Every voicemail was responded to more easily. Every demo, people attended more regularly. The conversion rate from demo to sale was much higher. And in some ways, it was so easy that they didn't really have to sell. And when you're in a startup emerging company environment, you're usually cracking into a market. People don't know you. You don't have any of those advantages. And so I wouldn't overweight someone who's been at just the brand and market leader because they've had success and put up big numbers. Look at the sales rep from perhaps not a market leader, a company that wasn't knocking it out of the park, but someone who outperformed their peer set within that company. And when it's harder, you learn things like how to craft a good outreach email. You learn things like having to listen very intently during a prospecting meeting, and those types of good habits that serve as a strong foundation for sales. So it's just a suggestion that sometimes don't underestimate the person who hasn't been at the top company, but someone who has all the skills and potential based on what you've seen from their existing company. And a related comment to that, this post I think I posted about a year ago, is just, again, don't undervalue people who were very impactful at unsuccessful companies. Don't overvalue people who were not that impactful, but at really successful companies. I've had the benefit of having some tremendously successful companies, and I've had some companies that were not so great. And I can just tell you, like, knowing the people behind the scenes of both types of companies, there are great people at both types of companies. There are people that are not that great at both types of companies. And so I just wouldn't hire their resume. You got to hire the person and really evaluate their capabilities. So just a thought on hiring. All right. This third one or fourth one, I posted, I think, just a couple of days ago. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll read the top half. And I'll preface that I call this a non-traditional thought because there is a traditional point of view that is that I'd like to cover as well, and I think has plenty of merit. So here's the non-traditional thought. A company should have a single pool of capital for 2 types of acquisition. 1 is customer acquisition. 2 is company acquisition. The allocation of the pool should skew towards the use that is more efficient and accretive. So let me give you the traditional thought. And again, I'll say this: the traditional thought has plenty of merit. So I don't want to give the wrong message, but traditionally acquiring companies, which is M&A, has sat in a very different place in a company than acquiring customers. And acquiring customers is your go-to-market engine. It's sales, it's marketing, depending on the type of company. And this has a lot of merit to it because acquiring a company comes with entirely different risks than acquiring a customer. Integrating a company has much different risks and effort than integrating a customer. Even accounting for an acquisition is very different than accounting for an acquisition of a customer. And it's a very different skill set. So this is why I think, for good reason, these 2 worlds have almost lived in completely different departments. One is sales and marketing, one is corporate development, and they live in different worlds. In the world that I live in, which is younger emerging companies, sometimes you have like a big sales and marketing effort, almost always, and sometimes you have nothing dedicated towards M&A, and so they might not even exist. The second half of this might not even exist. And so that's the traditional way of thinking about it. I would say that there are some companies where you can acquire a company for its customers and just port those customers onto your platform. And in this comment is really about that use case where you can easily roll up different companies and those customers can easily seamlessly integrate into your platform. In that case, I would say it's a useful sort of intellectual exercise to think of the sales and marketing budget and the M&A budget as one pool. And ask yourself, is $1 in sales more efficient? Is $1 of marketing more efficient? Or is $1 dedicated towards M&A more efficient? And which is the best avenue for the most efficient and accretive use of capital? Sometimes what you might find is that some companies are spending very inefficiently in one area and sort of undervaluing, underemphasizing another area which can be much more efficient. So maybe you've run into the wall at Facebook or Google, but M&A can be super efficient for you, or maybe M&A is really inefficient and sales is really efficient for you. And so I think it's a healthy exercise to say, hey, all of this is one pool. The best use, you're competing for that one pool, the best use wins, or the best use gets a disproportionate amount. What I don't think makes sense is if one use case is really inefficient, yet it continues to get a bulk of the capital, almost starving the other use case of capital that it could use to deploy more efficiently. So that's the thought about that, thinking about creating a single pool and letting the use cases compete based on their relative efficiency and accretiveness. All right, final thought. Okay, this is actually a repost of an article written by Peter Lynch. Peter Lynch, if you don't know who he is one of the sort of investing titans. I grew up in my era thinking about him as one of the best, right there with Warren Buffett. He's a Boston guy. He worked at Fidelity. He ran the Magellan Fund for decades, posted, I think, high 20% compounding growth for decades. So one of the best. He wrote this article, and I'll just cover the title, which is How to Catch Companies That Are on Their Way Back and Avoid Companies That Are on Their Way Out. So this article is about how sometimes he would go into the public markets and invest in turnaround stories. And it's a turnaround story because the company has struggled. It has had bad performance. Its stock price is down. And he's trying to articulate some perspective on how do you decide between a company that might turn around and a company that's actually just going to fail or never really recapture its former glory. And I think there are some lessons learned for those of us who are on the operating side. Maybe you're not in a pure turnaround scenario, but maybe you're trying to drive towards profitable growth, or you're changing your business or something along those lines where you're doing a pretty hard pivot. The first thing Peter Lynch says that he looks at when he's evaluating a possible turnaround is solvency. If he doesn't feel comfortable with the solvency of the business, he doesn't go any further. And so I think that's a very important piece of wisdom for those of us on the operating side is if you're in a turnaround situation, the number one most important thing you need to solve upfront is solvency. You need to establish that you are going to be around for the future to arrive. And so solvency is a marriage of a couple of dynamics. It's the cash generation of the business and the strength of the balance sheet. So it's profitability and balance sheet strength. And if you can address profitability and balance sheet strength, so you have enough cash and little or no debt, and you're generating cash as a business, you're going to be around. Like you have established the foundation for this business. It's that dynamic that says, hey, this company is solvent. It's not going anywhere. And you have sort of checked Peter Lynch's first box. What you don't want to do is get ahead of yourself. What a lot of companies in turnarounds do is they try and drive for growth, but they haven't solved the profitability balance sheet dynamic. You can grow and run out of capital. You can grow and go bankrupt if the first two are not with you. And so I think it's important and wise, and to Peter Lynch's perspective, to take out the exogenous risks first, which is take out the solvency risks, strengthen profitability and balance sheet right out of the gate. Then the question is, for a true turnaround to happen, is the company has to grow. I think Lynch actually gives some really good advice on this topic, which he says it takes longer than most people hope for. It doesn't happen overnight. there can be little green shoots that are false indicators. But in my experience, if you want to look for growth, the most obvious metric for growth is that the company's overall revenue is growing year over year. Like that is obviously that is the definition of growth. So before it's that obvious, the question is, are there indicators that suggest it's going in the right direction? And I would say that there's a few. The first is I would look for segments, channels, geographies, some subsegment of the business that is growing, but its growth may be overshadowed by a decline in the rest of the business. And so obviously, if every single segment of a business is not growing, then the whole thing's not growing. But in an overall business that might be declining, there can be some seams in that business that are showing strength and growth. And first, I start to look for those and see if those are expanding within the context of the business. If they are, and if certain elements of the business are growing, what you'll see then before year-over-year growth is you'll see segment growth. Then you'll see over time, you should see at the corporate level quarter-over-quarter growth. And then over time, you'll see year-over-year growth. So it usually happens in that sequence. So again, I think it's a good article that you should go check out, which talks about sort of solidifying the solvency of the business and then being patient through the growth, the top line, return of top line growth in the business. And those are some elements and green shoots that you can look for as you go. So those are a few thoughts on some of the posts. Now I can turn my attention to the comments section and see if you guys have any questions. It looks like you guys are having a good time in the comments section. I'm not going to lie. But if you have any particular comments or questions that I can actually answer, let me know. So let's see what we've got. By the way, as we wait for that to come in, I am in Boston. Last time we were here, you guys asked me if I'm actually live. I am live. I don't know how to prove it to you that I'm live, but it's 4:17 p.m. All right. Someone just asked me, what did I eat today? I had my protein shake in the morning, and I had a Anna's Taqueria burrito for lunch. Okay, how's that? Is that what you expected? I'm not sure. All right, what else do we have? Oh, what is my favorite update to the GameStop app? I can't really talk about anything really specific on GameStop, but I really do love the fact that you can now price your PSA graded cards on the GameStop app. That's really cool. And I think I posted about how I've been playing with that feature. Actually, hold on one sec. I have a few cards. You can see I have some cards here, like I was pricing them. This is actually the one that I priced that I think I tweeted about. And so I've got a few others. But I like that feature. It maxes out at, I think, 5 pricing units per day. So that's the max I can do. So I think that's really great. All right, what else do we have? Am I AI? No, I'm not AI. I'm for real. Larry, any tips for managing burnout? Boy, I'm going to try a new feature, which is if I can post a question. Oh, do you guys see that? All right, I think you do. Larry, any tips for managing burnout? Any tips? Let's see. I think consistently exercise and creating time for people, for yourself to take care of yourself. I guess they would call that self-care in this day and age, and doing that consistently. So for me, it's, have a good breakfast and exercise in the morning. And that's sort of my routine. I think if you do something, 1 or 2 things positive for yourself in the day, even if you're working hard, it sort of feels like you're not sort of burning yourself out. All right. Now that's interesting. I don't know how to get rid of the question. Oh, here we go. Hide. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? How do you get a company back on track when its revenue is dipping? Okay, let's see if I can show this. It's actually really hard because you guys make so many comments. To actually snag one and pull it over the screen is hard. I'll just answer the question. How how do you get revenue to return? I think you have to look at the business and look at what you look at any business is there's lots of inefficiencies in a company. So just trust me that this is true. When you come into a business, money is being spent on things that are irrelevant, that don't drive value, that don't drive sales efficiently. And you almost have to just parse the whole thing and think about it as an entire matrix and just isolate the areas where capital is being deployed, but it's not being deployed efficiently. And you sort of rationalize those areas. And that's not to sort of decrease the size of the business, which it can. It's to return capital to the business so that you can deploy it into areas that are growing or have the potential to grow. And so you remember when I talked at the last post about green shoots. What's the sad scenario is if you see some green shoots and there's certain areas that are worth investing in, but you don't have capital to go invest in them. And so it's almost like to grow revenue, you have to be sort of radically efficient on cost structure and efficiency to source capital for the areas that can grow. All right, what does community mean to a business? This is Justin. I'm going to show his. I've made some comments about community, and I think I made a post that community is the competitive advantage that I'm most comfortable with. There aren't that many really durable competitive advantages. I don't think technology is often one. Sales channels are not usually one. The two that I think are the almost hardest to quantify, but are among the strongest, are community and brand. There are certainly in consumer companies where they're not just selling product, but there's a huge following, there's a passion, there's a community behind it, and I think those companies have a huge durable advantage, just a tremendous durable advantage, and that almost goes part and parcel with brand. So I would say I almost don't want to invest in a company, especially if it's consumer related, if it doesn't have a community behind it. I'll digress a little bit, actually. I think when it comes to where you spend your sales and marketing dollars as a business, sometimes people focus too much on traditional paid channels, and rather than using capital to sort of cultivate the community and that softer aspect of the business, I think sometimes you can invest more in community and use that as the driver of growth than sort of traditional marketing channels. All right, let's see, what else do we have? What's the RTS truck? Okay, sorry, I'll get this. This is a garbage truck. It's it's a company that I invested in a while back ago. It's called Recycle Track Systems. They're kind of like an Uber for waste and recycling, and it's a company that I'm on the board in out of New York. So they gave that to me when we invested, and it's a cool toy that I've had on my desk ever since. All right, what do we got? Someone's now claiming that I am definitely AI. Do you work out, Larry? Yes, I work out almost every day. Okay. You guys are funny. You're saying some things that I cannot repeat in this context. I think you're trying to test me to see if I'll falter. What's your favorite drink? You're going to think I'm weak sauce. Outside of water, it's cranberry and soda. Is that pretty weak? You can say it's weak. They joke around here. I don't really drink alcohol hardly at all. And so cranberry and soda is my go-to drink. More soda water than cranberry juice. And people here call it the drink of champions when it's kind of a weak sauce drink. I get it. All right. What else do we have? Okay, maybe I'll take a couple more. Why does everyone keep asking if I'm human or AI? I don't know. Should I be taking that personally? I don't know. Okay. What kind of strategy do you use to reset the course of a company dipping in revenue? I think I kind of answered that on the last question a couple questions ago about isolating the areas of growth and being rigorous about taking capital away from the areas that are not efficient. Okay, let's see if we can find one more. Someone's asking me about cat or dogs. Okay, what do I do for exercise? You guys are interested in my exercise regime. I lift weights. I do resistance training. I don't like to run. I have run the Boston Marathon once. I am not a long distance runner. I ran track in high school, so I ran the 400, the 200. It's terrible. But I did run the Boston Marathon once, and I started training by running one mile in my first training run. That was it. So, and I vowed never to do that again. So, but I mostly do strength training. Okay, last question. I got an ice cream question. When will you have ice cream next? Is the question. Scooty, I just want you to know, I'm probably going to have ice cream tonight. I am a bit of an ice cream aficionado. Actually, this is a good question for the community, and maybe you can send it back to me on Twitter at some point, or X. Like, what is the very best vanilla ice cream in the entire country? I have been searching for that, and I love ice cream, so I had it last night. I'm probably gonna have it tonight. And so if you want to give me some good recs on the best vanilla ice cream, I'm on the hunt for it. All right, I think that's pretty much it. I'll let you guys go back to your day. Thank you for joining me, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much. Take care.